It's D-Day for the Trump-Zelensky meeting. And as the leaders meet, I am joined by Fred Weir, a Canadian journalist who lives in Moscow and specializes in Russian affairs. Welcome to the show, Fred. Trump has made it crystal clear: no NATO membership for Ukraine, no reversing Russia's annexation of Crimea, and he even sounds open to a land swap deal with Putin. How do you think this entire situation is going to devolve?
Well, it is like everything else in these tumultuous times, completely unpredictable. We know that meetings like that can go very wrong because we've seen it happen, and it looks a lot like an intervention. When family and friends converge on some fellow to make him change his ways, all of Zelensky's friends are going to be there to back him up and to try to prevail upon Trump. It's going to be interesting how he responds. But I think the lines are drawn more or less as you just laid them out. Um, Zelensky has made his what presumably his best offer, which is freeze the lines, complete ceasefire along existing lines, and uh, rejected all of Putin's ideas for settling the root causes before we stopped fighting, and also handing over the last, I think, 3 cities in Donbass to the Russians. Um, so that's a non-starter. I mean, on both sides, they're still too far apart for there to be an agreement, unless Trump exercises his magic and Zelensky caves. I don't think that this meeting is going to bring results or any kind of workable results, and therefore the idea of a trilateral summit on Friday is probably um, not realistic at this point.
Do you believe that the European leaders are going there to avoid a February like situation, or is there genuinely something that they can add to this entire conversation?
Well, some of them do think they have a rapport with Trump. I think the Finnish president, Mr. Stubbs, thinks he's a Trump whisperer because he had a very productive golf session with him. I think they're all going to preserve their own reputations. Um, they've invested a lot in a certain approach to Ukraine, full support as long as it takes. And I think this is how they view what they have to do. And of course, they're afraid of what might happen to poor Mr. Zelensky if he's left alone with Trump in the Oval Office. So there is that. Um, but I don't think, I wonder what effect this will have on Trump, because the appearance of being ganged up on, I don't think will sit well with him. But as I say, don't ask me to predict what we're going to see by
What we're going
tomorrow
to see.
morning, because I don't know.
Quickly, you must be interacting with a lot of Russian journalists over there. How worried is, or what is their sense? What is the sense in Moscow about Ukraine having a direct US backing at the table? What is the sense in Russian media regarding this meeting?
Um, I think that their attitude is that the Europeans are panicking. That seems to be a headline I've seen, and they might well be. Um, but the elephant in the room here is that the Russian momentum on the battlefield is picking up. The Russians are clearly gaining ground, and I don't think anybody at this point can see a path to victory for Ukraine. I mean, 2 years ago, it didn't look like they had much chance. But now, I think all the consensus of people who read the telegram channels, the war correspondents, the news, is that sooner or later, Ukraine is going to collapse. So I think that certainly is a message, certainly what they believe in Russia. But I think that Trump has got that message as well. People are telling him that it's a lost cause. Uh, cut cut the losses, make the best deal you can, and that will have to be mostly what Putin wants, or something that Putin wants, can't refuse. And I think that they must have come to that understanding, not agreement. Putin, in his press conference, used the word ponomania, which means understanding, not agreement. But everybody translated it as agreement. So, but understanding. So they have an understanding, and Putin clearly believes that they do. Trump, unfortunately, is a guy who can swing back and forth, flip and flop, say one thing and then the complete opposite the next day. So I don't know. But that deal would be that the Ukrainians withdraw from. And basically, it's just Kramatorsk. That there's one remaining strong point, agglomeration in Donetsk that the Ukrainians hold. If they withdrew from that, it's about 20% of Donetsk's territory that they would cede to Russia. Putin says he's willing to give the ceasefire, provide a full comprehensive ceasefire with that token handed to him. So that being the case, I don't know. I'm just a journalist. I'm not Machiavelli, and I'm actually half Ukrainian by ethnic heritage. I don't want to see Ukraine defeated, but I can see the way things are going. And I would say make a deal, give Putin what he wants, but get security guarantees, get as much of the world on side with that agreement, make it as legal and final as possible, so that Ukraine, what's left of it, 80% of Ukraine, it's a big country, can get over the war, start recovering, become the country it should be, a much better place than it is right now. So end the war. I think this is an opportunity to end the war, and I would hate to see
You
them blow
said,
it.
right, you said one thing, and that struck with me. You said, give Putin what he wants. Before the Alaska summit, Trump continued to insist for a ceasefire first, and then he will talk a peace deal. But now, after the Alaska summit, he's changed his tune. He's flipped, as you say, and said that peace deal, forget ceasefire. What do you think changed at the Alaska summit?
This is what Russians tell me. We've paid a very, very heavy price. We have these war objectives. At this point, we are not relinquishing them. I'm pretty sure that Putin must have conveyed that to Trump in some way that registered in his brain, because that is, as people are pointing out, the Russian position. No immediate comprehensive ceasefire before a full deal. That's what Putin has been saying all along. They have their reasons because they believe it would just freeze the lines. They'd get no other concessions of any kind, and they'd be back at war again, in a year, 2 years. I do believe, I talked to a lot of Russians. I don't know what's in Putin's mind, but I do believe they want a final legal ruling, a deal, an agreement, a treaty that they can rely on, and that they can start integrating in with the rest of the world, because this is something that post-Soviet Russians really want to do. They want to take a place in the world and be integrated with it.
So, from what I hear you say, Zelensky has two choices, a bad one and a worse one. Bad, which is agree to Putin's terms and just sign over whatever part of Donetsk that he wants and, get security guarantees. Two, disagree with this entire deal with Putin, with Trump, and go into battle, which will just eventually lead to more killing and Zelensky losing more land. Have I got that understood correct, or is there a third option that Zelensky has at this meeting?
Yes, I think that those are the two choices. You've laid them out well. I, I don't think there's any ground in between taking this deal and not and refusing it. And I do believe that Zelensky will probably refuse it because it's the end of his political career if he takes it. That's one feature of this situation.
Yeah.
But yes, unless someone can show me how the battlefield dynamics could be reversed, then the momentum is with the Russians. It's picking up by all accounts. So if we come back to this in 6 months, the deal on the table for Zelensky or whoever his successor is will be much worse.
If Trump pushes Zelensky to, let's say, reconsider this territorial concessions, particularly over Donbass, how does that really play into Russia's overall strategy with regard to this war, or what they called as their end goals to this war?
Okay, well, Putin is a work in progress. I can never read him. He's far more predictable and consistent than Donald Trump, but he still is a guy. He's in complete charge, and he's the guy who makes a decision, and he can change his mind. So, but what he has said all along is that our main goals aren't even for territory. And indeed, the two Minsk agreements over the last 10 years assumed that the Donbass would be reintegrated into Ukraine. The abortive March 22 uh, uh, peace agreement that was hammered out between Ukrainian and Russian negotiators directly also assumed that Donbass, except for the two republics now given independence by Russia, would return to Ukraine. And that even said that there could be a 15-year moratorium on negotiations over Crimea. So the main Russian goals all along, and as demonstrated in their negotiating positions, have been that Ukraine under no circumstances should join NATO or any other sort of parallel situation where they're like a NATO member and everything but name. Uh, the Russians in that deal in March 22 demanded substantial demilitarization. No heavy weapons, not just nuclear weapons, but no long-range missiles for Ukraine. Limits on the size of its army. Pretty harsh, punitive measures, but and also there were stipulations about Russian speakers, Russian language, which is very widely spoken in Ukraine and by certain groups. It's not certain areas. It's predominantly spoken. There's a very large number of ethnic Russians in eastern Ukraine, so the Russian language, he said, or what the deal was then, should have official status in Ukraine. There were a few other things, and since then, Ukraine has cracked down on the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, which is affiliated to Moscow, to the Moscow Patriarchate. It's pretty well been repressed inside Ukraine. So that would be now a stipulation that the Ukrainian Orthodox Church should be given back its status. A few other things like that, but it's mainly, if you want a bottom line, it will be mainly that a Ukraine that is within Russia's sphere of influence. It's like I think that the Putin era policy toward what they call the near abroad or the former Soviet space has been something like what post-war Marxists used to call neo-colonialism. You see, the places, they're independent, they can have their territory, their sovereignty, even their own political systems, but they must toe the line of the former imperial master in certain areas, like foreign policy and so on.
What happens to Zelensky if that happens?
Well, I don't know. I think, before the war, Ukraine was part of my beat. I covered it quite intensively and was down there a lot. And I'm impressed that the Ukrainian political system is both democratic, it's far more democratic than Russia, and it's relatively stable. I don't think the Russians really ever appreciated that, but it's true. Ukraine is a separate country. It's got its own history and its own institutional sense of existence. And so I think that uh, if, but that said, that said, I think Zelensky's position would be very precarious because his presidential term has long since run out. So a year since his mandate expired, and there is, I don't want to suggest that Ukraine is some kind of Nazi country. It's not. It's a democratic country, and but the ultra right in Ukraine is highly organized. It's small, but there are moments when small groups of people whose expertise is street fighting can punch way beyond their weight in terms of moving the political needle. That happened in 2014 on the Maidan. It was kind of ultra-right groups who kept provoking violence and pushing pushing the situation out of control. I fear those people because they're not only well organized, they're armed, they have combat experience, and they have free reign inside Ukraine. So what they might do is a big question mark.
Okay, how is the Kremlin framing this Alaska summit, for instance, or the Russian media, so to speak? Did they see the Alaska summit as a win for Putin or just mere optics?
No, I don't know about win, but they covered it intensively, lovingly. Huge crews of Russian journalists were there. They are very pleased. I mean, it's my long time impression as someone who looks and sounds just like an American traveling around in Russia that Russians love Americans. They're very pro-American in their hearts. They're not xenophobic. Maybe their officials are sometimes xenophobic, but Russian people, in my long experience, are incredibly welcoming, friendly, hospitable, and they are eager for contact with Westerners and Americans in particular. They compare themselves a lot to Americans. So I think Putin there in Alaska going through all those motions with Trump, I haven't seen polls that say so, but I'll bet you are incredibly popular with the Russian audiences.
Okay. Putin's closing words to Trump next, not actually closing, he launched into English in the middle of the presser saying next time in Moscow, grabbed a lot of attention. How are Russians interpreting that?
I think they will love to see a summit meeting, a good old-fashioned summit in taking place in Moscow. The sense of isolation has hit Russians pretty hard over the last 11 years, and particularly the past 3 years. And it's those Russians who, like my own family, have one foot in the West. They have family, friends, business in the West who have been hit the hardest by it. And everybody yearns to be able to go back to Italy and to the beaches in Saint-Tropez, and there is nothing quite like traveling to Europe for Russians or to America, and I think I think they would be just delighted. They would put on a really big show here in Moscow, that's for sure. We'd all want to cover it intensively.
And how about, many US outlets, however, said that Putin steamrolled Trump at the press conference at the summit. Is that how it looked from Moscow?
I don't, a lot of my colleagues are saying really nasty, bitter, acrimonious things about that summit, which I don't quite get because I think it was inconclusive, but it was good optics, and there's obviously some progress going on there. And I watched that press conference. The only odd thing about it was that Putin spoke first. That's kind of unusual, but Putin has been doing this a long time. He's awfully polished. I mean, you can see how he's got it. He knows how to do it. So it wouldn't have been his idea to speak first. I'm quite sure. So maybe Trump said, "You go ahead," and he did. But that's not the same thing as being steamrolled, is it? I don't see any signs that it was anything but a really friendly uh, meeting. They behaved very respectfully toward each other, uh, and I guess the vision of Trump behaving so in such a friendly and respectful manner toward Putin grates on a lot of people. I have my own editorial board who who have many people who feel that way. They feel very disappointed about this summit. They feel like America was humiliated. I'm sorry, I just don't see it.
Okay. You don't see that? You think that it was a meeting of equals, and now what's going to happen in the Oval Office tomorrow morning, your time, will again be watched very carefully when Zelensky is in, surrounded by a clutch of top European heavy hitters. Uh, let's see how that meeting plays out. Let's hope there's no repeat of what happened in February.
Yes, let's indeed hope. Because the war is just terrible. And when the costs of it become widely
Yeah.
known, everybody's going to be horrified. So the sooner it ends, yes, the better.
And peace for Zelensky might come as a poisoned chalice, so to speak, because one way or the other, he has to give an inch. Uh, and let's see how that goes, whether he agrees to it. So far, he's sticking to his guts, uh, on social media at least, writing that no way that he's going to give up anything. But let's see how that plays out in the meeting. So thank you so much, Fred, and we hope to speak with you again, probably post this meeting, to try and understand where we are going and where we've
I'll be
reached.
happy.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Thank you for your time.